Welcome to Redacted tonight. This is the comedy show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents. I have some good news. Through their greed, incompetence, and hubris, our U.S. government, our corporate slime balls with ties on, are speeding up the end of the American empire, an empire that has brought death and destruction around the world. I know that doesn't make a pandemic any more fun. You know, just look at it like high school. It's miserable, boring, you can't get laid to save your life, but after you're done with it, you don't have to be in high school anymore. Or maybe that was just my experience, I don't know. Even fairly mainstream media like The Independent in Britain are now saying the U.S. is losing its world superpower status due to its failure to lead on the COVID-19 crisis. And this time, it might not recover. The American oligarchs are showing the world something as the shit hits the fan. They're showing everyone that they can't be trusted to lead, to help, to facilitate, to organize, even just to secure the short-term future of humankind. They're demonstrating that they can't do shit but steal trillions of dollars and lie about it. Asking the American empire to help you is like asking a beehive to do your taxes. They can't, they won't, they don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, and they might sting you just for asking. Meanwhile, other world leaders are doing the exact opposite. The UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres called for an immediate global ceasefire in all corners of the world. The U.S., on the other hand, has called for more war, economic war on Venezuela and Iran, bombing in Yemen and Afghanistan, and more. They consider it to be essential work to perpetrate endless war against countries that just want to be left alone. Wouldn't want to take a 2-month vacay from our death industry. We're attacking so many countries, we're just making up new ones to bomb. Yeah, go ahead, drone bomb the People's Republic of Volcano Land off the coast of Sudan. What's that? Sudan doesn't have a coast? Well, bomb the country next to it so that it has a coast. Jesus, I gotta think of everything. Meanwhile, China is sending medical supplies and assistance to 89 countries as part of its Health Silk Road. It is ignoring U.S. sanctions by sending drugs, test kits, and supplies to Iran and Venezuela. God damn you, China, flouting our authority by helping dying people? You knew helping people was the one thing we won't stand for, other than a food source that doesn't offer a deep-fried option. But China's not the only country helping other nations. Cuba has sent brigades of doctors and nurses to Italy, as well as Venezuela, Nicaragua, Jamaica, Suriname, and Grenada. Well, fuck you, Castro! I know he's dead, but he probably put something in his will saying, just to piss off the Americans, keep helping sick people after I'm dead. Fuck you, Castro! But this gruesome assault of helping does not stop with Cuba. Russia has also sent medical supplies to hard-hit countries like Italy. You know something is super evil if Russia is doing it. So clearly sending them medical supplies is the equivalent of napalming an orphanage of children who were one day away from being adopted by a loving family. So let's call it what it is. Russia bombed Italy with medical supplies. You bastards! And it continues. France, Germany, and Britain have sent medical goods to Iran through Instex, a workaround to export goods to Iran that bypasses U.S. sanctions. They're helping Iranians even after we put up roadblocks to stop them from helping Iranians. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, why would you help Iranians? Look at them. Have you ever seen something so villainous? Especially a little one? Haven't you heard the propaganda we've been reporting about them? They sacrifice children to goats or something. I don't remember, okay? It's hard to keep everything straight when you're making it all up to begin with, which actually was the New York Times original motto. They only changed it a couple of years ago. I like the old one better. And even Venezuela, suffering from a U.S. economic blockade and threats of a military attack, is sending aid to its neighbors, including Ecuador and Colombia, even though Colombia has joined the U.S. in threatening Venezuela. Okay, hold on. So Russia, China, Cuba, and Venezuela are helping other countries around the world? Well, then we better increase our anti-helping offensive. We better start going around to patients on ventilators and just punching them in the face or sitting on their chests or some shit. Well, actually, that's not far off from reality. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau expressed concerns over reports that medical supplies originally designated for Canada have been shipped to the United States. And we've done the same to France and Germany as well. According to The Guardian, the U.S. has been accused of modern piracy after the diversion of masks meant for Europe. You hear that? Modern pirates. Pirates are sexy nowadays. They're the cool kind of thieving and raping and pillaging. Raping and pillaging are like Trump's wheelhouse. He was doing that stuff before he was even president, all right? All we need is for Trump to start wearing guy liner and some gold teeth, and I think we'd be the coolest country on the planet. But riddle me this. Much of our mainstream media, our corporate media, will tell you the truth about Trump's response to the coronavirus, right? They'll tell you his administration has been incompetent and ignorant and petty, narcissistic, incompetent, foolhardy, anti-science, corrupt. Did I mention incompetent? So, if that's what the Trump administration is when it comes to a pandemic, why do those same corporate news shows tell you to fall in line for all the pro-war, pro-death and destruction foreign policies coming from the Trump administration? Look, the behavior of our ruling sociopaths during this moment and the media that supports them spells the end for the empire. Back to Patrick Cockburn at The Independent. Yes, his name is Cockburn, and I'm above commenting on it, I think. He said the U.S. may be reaching its Chernobyl moment as it fails to lead in combating the coronavirus epidemic. As with the nuclear accident in the Soviet Union in 1986, a cataclysm is exposing systemic failings that have already weakened U.S. hegemony in the world. Whatever the outcome of the pandemic, nobody is today looking to Washington for a solution to the crisis. No one is looking to us for leadership in dealing with a global virus, in dealing with an economic crisis, in foreign policy, in domestic policy, in how to not smell like rotting swamp rat policy. All of them. No one's looking at us. Nations around the world are scrambling to do the opposite of anything the United States does. And as our empire winds down, it's time for us all to become a rational, science-based global community that lives for equality and sustainability instead of greed and aggression. But if that fails, at least we have deep-fried Oreos. Coming from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast is Redacted tonight.
Let's roll, never get their control. They've got their money, but we've got our soul. Let's roll, never get their control. They've got their money, but we've got our soul.
Welcome, I'm Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. Many states have continued trying to lightly encourage homeless people to move along. Seattle, a city very hard hit by the virus, recently destroyed many homeless encampments. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The homeless in this country, more so than any other group of people, have refused to obey the stay-at-home orders. They're just running around, just living it up. And since the rest of us aren't out and about, that means the homeless get to enjoy the whole world to themselves. While we sit on a dirty couch eating nuclear blast-resistant nacho cheese off our sizable grundles. Screw you, homeless. Why do they get the world right now? And clearly this goes to show how important our police officers are. When we're not in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a global pandemic, so many of us, we take our police for granted. We just assume they'll be there when we need them, like a spare tire, or that ex-boyfriend will always take you back. The break the glass in case of emergency boyfriend. Forgive my annoyance, but I think at some point in our lives, every man has been that guy. Well, joke's on you, Sade. I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you. Ha ha! What about that? Unless you want to have a Zoom date sometime, just catch up on old memories. If you got a few minutes here. Back to the police. We take them for granted, but then a crisis hits, and thank God they were there to destroy the tents of homeless people. Even during a pandemic, those heroes are out there. Just think if those tents had remained in place. People would have thought it was okay to go camping. Before you know it, tents would fill the streets. They'd be in the public fountains. They'd be piled as high as skyscrapers. Society would shut down because we'd be drowning in tents. Anyway, while our police are doing the important things, like making the homeless just a wee bit so much more homeless, Pittsburgh is wasting their time and money on trifling matters like removing their lead pipes so people can have clean drinking water. Apparently, Pittsburgh's water has been tainted with lead for the past many years. Wah! My water's filled with lead. It's toxic. Wah! Ugh. Third world problems, am I right? But this pandemic crisis is no time to secure health and happiness of your citizens. No. This is a time to give trillions to corporations. They need the help more than your lead-headed children. Besides, having lead-plated kids is good to stop the 5G from getting piped into their noggins. But yes, corporations need the help more. Even the small corporations need our charity. Who's going to bail out the doggy yoga studios? The stores that sell homemade Tibetan wine bottle openers to be sold to people who can't understand what they say? The fidget spinner kiosks, or the neighborhood anal bleaching parlors. We must save them first, or else we'll all have gnarly colored anuses. And after we save the businesses, then you can have your elitist drinkable tap water. Moving on, I think one thing we can all agree on is that no one could have seen this crisis coming. It was as unforeseeable as the pushback against comedian Jeff Dunham's Jose the Jalapeno character. No one could have known people would view that as racist. And no one had any idea a pandemic could happen in America, other than those who wrote the Pentagon plan to deal with the threat of a novel influenza they anticipated and the consequent scarcity of ventilators, face masks, and hospital beds. But they wrote that way back in 2017. 2017. We were young and naive then. We were still riding around on horseback, eating the warts off witches' noses because we thought it would terminate a pregnancy. It does not. It just creates a very ugly baby. We were completely different back in 2017. But the warnings go back even further than that. The former head of the Infectious Diseases and Countermeasures Division at the Defense Intelligence Agency, or ADICACTICACIA for short, said the intelligence community has warned about the threat from highly pathogenic influenza viruses for 2 decades at least. They have warned about the coronavirus for at least 5 years. 2 decades! We've known this shit for 2 decades! And nobody did a goddamn thing of it to deal with it because it wasn't profitable. Because the big banks didn't give a fuck. I blame Obama. I blame Obama more than Trump because Obama has no excuse. Trump does. Trump can't read. He couldn't have read those reports, even if they were shoved in front of him at a golf course. Now, if they'd put the information in a puppet show, then maybe, or maybe body painted it on a fucking Playboy bunny, maybe then it would have gotten his attention. Oh my God. This all could have been avoided. Thousands of lives saved if the CDC had just used Jose the Jalapeno to warn Trump. There's no way he wouldn't listen to a racist puppet. I mean, he is a racist puppet. Of course he'd listen to his own kind. Anyway, we have to go to a short break, but since you might be sitting home, this means you have time to watch my free stand-up comedy special at LeeCampAmerican.com. That's right, my stand-up comedy special is free for the first time ever. Also, grab the new RT America app, Portable TV, at portable.tv/download. I'll be right back with a lot more. Welcome back. I'm still Lee Camp. It's probably no surprise to you that all of us will soon be tracked in one way or another to assess our risk for getting or spreading coronavirus. But some of the companies handling our sensitive info are much better known for the countless ways they've jeopardized our privacy. For more, we go to our truth bomb, Natalie McGill.
Privacy was already a fleeting thing before the coronavirus. And now that millions of Americans find themselves trapped working from home among their families, it seems like this man could be dethroned for the most viral work from home interruption.
Technology kills viruses in just one. What did you do, Mom? Dad, holy crap!
At least he only had to cover up his top half and not his bottom. But physical privacy isn't the only thing to be concerned about. After Lindsay Barrett, an attorney with Georgetown Law School's Institute for Public Representation, told The Intercept, the CDC and state and local governments are reportedly using location data from advertisers to track the movements of people they suspect of carrying COVID-19. Not only can the government track you as if you're in a game of The Sims, but now they know you took your smartphone from your couch to your toilet and didn't wash your hands. But the use of location data is just the tip of an iceberg filled with companies and agencies hoping to cover up their past invasions of privacy, while expanding potentially irreversible privacy invasion in the name of COVID-19 data collection. A practice that privacy expert and activist Wolfie Crystal refers to as COVID washing. Mostly because calling it Corona washing sounds like the name of a wet t-shirt contest in a dive bar in Mississippi that I certainly did not participate in 2003. I mean, why are you asking? What did you hear? Who's been talking about me? But the term COVID washing does explain why the company Palantir is getting praise for using its surveillance technology to track COVID-19 infections for the UK's National Health Service. Even though Palantir's CEO finally admitted to using that same technology to help ICE deport undocumented immigrants. And why spyware company NSO Group is partnering with Israel's defense ministry to use mobile phone data to track infected citizens. Even though NSO Group is under an FBI investigation on suspicion of hacking US residents and companies and gathering intelligence on governments. Or why a Customs and Border Patrol commissioner recently tweeted, facial recognition is a touch-free, hygienic way to validate your identity, as well as protect from exposure to COVID-19 and other germs at the airport. Jesus, if they thought tweets like that were convincing, then Mike Bloomberg might as well have tweeted, "Stop and frisk is a great way to educate youth about careers in law enforcement." But an epidemic like the coronavirus begs the same question posed to anyone peer-pressured into playing the game Never Have I Ever. Why wouldn't you want to sacrifice some of your personal data for a greater good? It was the same question our government asked us after the September 11th attacks. Except Edward Snowden pointed out that government surveillance programs intended to stop terrorism were not only overarching, but as successful against terrorism as your bandana is at protecting you against the coronavirus. Yet that hasn't stopped the government from becoming a Steve Urkel that's been waltzing in through an unlocked door without permission to our data for years. And just like the Winslows, privacy advocates have been trying to shut it ever since. And when whistleblowers like Edward Snowden pointed out that our intelligence community violated our civil liberties, the best response U.S. intelligence leaders could muster for the public was, "Did I do that?" So when it comes to the question, why wouldn't you want to sacrifice some of your personal data for a greater good? The key word here is some. Because we can't leave the door open for irreversible privacy violations. And I doubt any of us want our data in the hands of Silicon Valley companies and government agencies that have already proven they'll abuse it. Because there's no way to know they're only using it to record when we're sneezing. Reporting from my Sorry about that. Reporting from my apartment kitchen, this is Natalie McGill, Redacted Tonight.
All right, thank you, Natalie. I now have a news segment for you, a little chat on other important news that we haven't yet covered. It's with correspondent Anders Lee. Anders, thanks for joining me. What do you got for us?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, one of the big problems with this pandemic is the response on a global level, the lack of international cooperation. You have the cost of PPE skyrocketing in all countries all over the world, and that's because of controls they're putting on supplies to prevent them from going abroad. And
We've just been stealing them.
Yeah,
so
there's been a lot of that too.
works well.
Right. We're able to do that, but countries like the Central African Republic, they have a population of 4 million people.
Their theft game is not as on lock as
They're
ours.
working on it. Yeah. They're a few notches back.
Hold on, aren't there pirates off the coast of Africa? Couldn't they get some?
Well, they're right in the middle. They're landlocked, so they got to blow up some more neighbors.
Yeah, blow up the neighbors, create coasts. Yeah,
right.
That's important.
They should do something because right now they have 3 ventilators for a country of 4 million. So it's a disaster.
3?
Yes, 3.
Jesus.
They're going to have to share them or something. I don't know, distribute them north, south, middle. But the solution to this, rather than doubling down on nationalism and isolation and controls on these things, some have suggested, the economic historian Jamie Martin in the New York Times suggested that we look to World War I, which not a great cause. I don't endorse World War I.
You don't endorse it, yeah. Good call. That's a real dangerous path you're taking there.
Right. It's still a contentious issue, some parts of the world. But something they did back then is the Allies found that their economies were being destroyed because they were still competing even though they were fighting on the same side. So by the end of the war, they started making joint purchases. They started working cooperatively to make sure resources were allocated based on need and not which countries were in the most debt.
Hold on, you're saying countries working together to do things together. You've blown my mind. This sounds communist.
Sharing is caring. Yeah. It's almost as if we have global problems that aren't just isolated within the span of borders.
So that's the good aspect of World War I. We also killed each other with chlorine gas, so I'm guessing that's the bad aspect.
Right. This was the silver lining that we then ditched anyway. So
okay.
Not a lot of good lessons there.
What else we got going on?
Well, right now there's a bailout that was part of the latest stimulus package.
Right.
It included $50 billion in loans and grants for the airline industry. But unfortunately, not a lot of strings were attached, which is a pretty key thing in terms of climate change.
Really, just firing $50 billion at some of the greediest bastards in the world doesn't pan out well?
Well, it's because, they have the turbine and they just wanted to see all the money shoot out of it. It's kind of hard to resist that temptation.
The jet.
But, the airline emissions are going up. They went up 26% in the last 7 years, and they're predicted to triple by 2030. So we really have to do something. Originally in the bill, there was a provision that if you're receiving money, if you're an airline, you're receiving federal money, you have to work on reducing emissions. That got taken out.
I remember once hearing that Britney Spears would send her private jet across the country. She'd be in New York. She'd send him to LA to get the coffee she wanted, and then it would come back and deliver the coffee to her in New York. Are you saying we'll have to stop that kind of activity?
I think we should carve out a Britney Spears exemption.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the airline industry is pretty powerful, but I think hers might be a little more juicier. But unfortunately, it is toxic, that way of transporting goods. So that's something we have to work on. And this stimulus package was an opportunity to do that. But unfortunately, the environment was not considered.
Right, you'd think if there was some time that you could attach strings to something, it's when you're giving billions of dollars away to executives. That would be the time to say, hey, also, you need to do A, B, or C.
Right. They did none of that. They were forced, though, because of the airline union, to protect workers. And the union right now is trying to spread that nationally to make sure other industries are protected as well. But they don't have the strength right now to demand environmental protections, unfortunately.
All right, well, I'll chalk that up under bad news. I'm going to put that under bad news.
There's a lot of bad news this week.
Do we have another story?
Well, right now, all over the country in America, police are taking the opportunity to arrest black people, as they have been.
Earlier I mentioned knocking down tents for homeless people.
Right, and there's a guy in Florida who's a doctor who's been working with the homeless. And unfortunately for him, he's happens to be black in Florida, and he was on his way.
You mean unfortunately he was arrested, not unfortunately he's black.
Right, yes. In this particular scenario. In other scenarios, he's fine.
Not in life in general, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
This is not an ideal situation to be in Florida. Or really anywhere in this country. But he was on his way to help homeless people get tested for the coronavirus, and this cop just stops him. He's like, you have a mask on? It's like, yeah, why don't you have a mask on? The cop's spitting in his face, like violating all these standards that you're supposed to have if you're a public...
I mean, before we even get to the doctor, that's the irony of all this, is that these cops, when they're arresting people for like not staying at home or not wearing a mask or whatever it is, they then have to be all up on them. So it kind of violates the whole 6-foot bubble thing.
I mean, if you're a cop, your mentality is that you're just invincible at all times. So you think not only can you not be shot, the coronavirus also won't kill you.
Can you not shoot the virus when it's coming at you?
I'm sure they've tried.
Okay.
I'm sure shooting ranges at police departments all over the country have the coronavirus on those targets.
All right, so back to this doctor. What did they do to him?
So they detained him for a moment, but like, what are they going to charge him with? He's outside his own house throwing away garbage before he goes to, do a great thing. And so they demand to see his ID. His wife gets the ID, and the cop just kind of like saunters off. Well,
this has been a long time law. I think in most states is you can't be a doctor while black. That's
right. DWB stands for driving and doctor. So.
and also doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anders. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And here are your headlines from the future. In 3 months, you'll read, as empire ends, America tries to find loving home for 700,000 Abrams tanks. Oh, I hope they find it. And in 2 months, you'll learn, Joe Biden names coat rack he's been talking to as presidential running mate. Okay, that's exciting. That's exciting news. And this Wednesday, you'll hear, in order to decrease the spread of the virus, state governments ordering homeless to be homeless via Skype or Zoom. That should help. That's our show, but I've been doing a lot of web-exclusive videos because I have a little extra time. They're at youtube.com/redacted tonight, and my new book is at leecampbook.com. You can grab the digital version for just a few bucks, so go do that. Until next time, good night, and keep fighting!